Okay, the beginning of a revolution. Now remember, first we talked about the Committee of Correspondence. In page 9 notes, basically was a line of communication between the 13 individual colonies about what was going on, what was happening in each colony, any good ideas. Also, what were the other colonies doing as far as preparing for a possible revolution. One thing that the colonies were beginning to do was to form statewide, countywide militias known as Minutemen. They were known as Minutemen because they were supposed to be ready to fight in a minute's notice. All this starts to happen after the Intolerable Acts. Remember, that's closing the Boston Harbor, civil rights, housing soldiers in people's homes, mainly in Boston. In late 1774, we have the First Continental Congress, which will meet in Philadelphia. A little side note there, any early meetings, if you don't know where they were held, choose Philadelphia. It's always a good choice. They discussed the rights of the colonists and the colonies, what they had grievances with, what they were upset about, what they would like to see changed. They agreed to meet back again in 1 year. They send a letter to King George III telling him of their grievances and hoping to resolve this peacefully. The battles of Lexington and Concord. The colonists have been storing weapons in the town of Concord, preparing for what most believed at that time was an inevitable battle against the British, war against the British. The British get wind of these weapons that are in Concord. They come to Boston. They're going to march from Boston through Lexington to Concord. Paul Revere, William Dawson, Samuel Prescott go on their famous midnight ride to warn the colonists of the British invasion. The British meet up with the colonists first in Lexington and basically give the colonists a pretty good butt whooping at that point. Now, as they leave Lexington marching to Concord, another group of Minutemen meet the British soldiers before they get to Concord, and they conduct a kind of what we would call a guerrilla battle along the road before the British soldiers get to Concord. And basically what that means is they didn't stand face to face out in the open against the British. They basically ambushed them. They hid in trees, hid in ditches, hid behind bushes, and ambushed the British soldiers. And they did much better in that fight, turning the British soldiers back, not allowing the British soldiers to take the weapons that they had hid in Concord. In May of 1775, at the Second Continental Congress, a year after the first one, the colonies decided at that point to call for a standing army, the Continental Army, not just to have militias, but to have a standing army, and appointed George Washington as the leader of this Continental Army. Remember, Washington gets his experience fighting in the French and Indian War. Still at this point, colonists are basically split. Some talk of compromise, some talk of independence. You still had probably as many colonists that believed that we should compromise and stay British colonies as you had that believed in independence. So this was still a huge debate between the colonists at this point in time. The first battle is the Battle of Bunker Hill in Massachusetts. The colonists take the high ground overlooking Breed's Hill in Boston. The British charge the hill 3 times until the colonists basically run out of ammunition. The colonists do a good job of fighting. They just simply don't have the manpower, nor did they have the supplies to stand up to the much larger, much more efficient, much more well-equipped British Army. At this point in time, the British military had fought on 5 continents and had never been defeated. So this is the biggest, best army in the world at that point in time. the colonists end up throwing rocks, using their muskets as baseball bats and things to fight back. There are lots of casualties at the Battle of Bunker Hill, and it is the deadliest battle of the war. It does prove the intentions of the colonists in the fact that they can stand up and fight against the much better, bigger, better prepared British Army. Also, at the end of the Second Continental Congress in July of 1775, the colonists write what they call the Olive Branch Petition. The olive branch is supposed to be a sign of peace, and they send this letter to King George, asking him to return to the peace of the past. At this point in time, King George is very upset with the colonists, and refuses the petition and urges the rebellion put down. He's now decided that he is going to prove a point to the colonists. Loyalists and patriots, we will talk about this again in page 11 notes, but a loyalist is someone who stayed loyal to Britain. He was not for independence. Patriots were for independence. What I do want to talk about is the book Common Sense, written by Thomas Paine. This book urges independence for the colonies. It basically tells you all the reasons why. This is as simple as common sense on why the colonies should declare their independence. Big pamphlet of the time has swayed a lot of people towards independence.